Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at Dragon Ball Z Buyuu Retsuden for the Sega Mega Drive. It was developed and published by Bandai, and it was released in 1994, officially in Japan, France, and Spain, and unofficially in Portugal. It's obviously based on the legendary series of manga and anime created by Akira Toriyama, and it features 11 playable characters from the Frieza and Cell story arcs. It's also the only DBZ game to appear on the Mega Drive, unlike the Super Famicom, which had a ton of them. I guess Bandai suffered from a little console bias. Buyuu Retsuden is essentially the Mega Drive version of one of the Super Butoden games. It plays exactly like those with only a few differences, which are just to suit the Mega Drive controller. Even if you're playing with a 6-button controller, this game only makes use of 3. A punches, B kicks, holding A and B together charges up your energy meter, and C allows you to switch back and forth from ground to air, and all of these special attacks are performed with the same button combinations that you'll find in Super Butoden. You can dash around by double tapping the directional buttons, and when there's enough distance between the two characters, the match goes to split screen, and this is when you can launch giant energy attacks at one another. Even if your energy is low, you can still perform these attacks. You'll just be exhausted for a short while afterwards, and if you're on the receiving end, you can dodge, deflect, counter, or just take the blast to the face. You only have 2 gameplay modes to choose from, story and versus. No Tenkaichi Budokai, unfortunately. The gameplay in Buyuu Retsuden seems like it should be pretty good on paper at least, but the execution is far from perfect. The controls feel pretty stiff and delayed, and everything has a real floaty feel to it, even if you're not actually floating, and despite the advent of blast processing, it suffers from some very slow and sluggish gameplay. Honestly, I expected a lot better, but unfortunately, Buyuu Retsuden fails to live up to Super Butoden in the gameplay department. The presentation in Buyuu Retsuden, unlike the gameplay, really impressed me. Not the visuals so much, which are decent, they at least look as good as their Super Famicom counterparts. The characters look like you'd want them to, they're all well representative of the source material, and the stages are nicely detailed and colorful too. No complaints at all, but the sound design definitely outshines the visuals if you ask me. This is the one area where Buyuu Retsuden doesn't emulate Super Butoden, and instead goes for its own original soundtrack, which sounds fantastic. Every track is high energy and very well suited to a DBZ game. I actually prefer it over the Super Butoden soundtracks. When playing Versus mode, you're actually allowed to pick whatever track you want during the match, and just like a lot of the other Mega Drive games I've covered recently, there are some excellent voice clips here from the cast of the DBZ anime, which is always awesome. Overall, Buyuu Retsuden features some decent visuals and great sound design that, along with the license, make this game at least somewhat enjoyable because the gameplay is definitely subpar. So this isn't really a very good game. It's pretty much only going to appeal to DBZ fans and doesn't have much to offer fighting game fans. It's not a terribly expensive game, thankfully. A complete copy can be found on eBay, usually for around $30 or so, but if you want this style of 16-bit DBZ game, then I'd recommend going with either Super Butoden 2 or 3 on the Super Famicom, or even Shin Butoden on the Sega Saturn. They're all better games, and they're typically more affordable too. But if you're a hardcore DBZ or Mega Drive collector, then you probably won't hate Buyuu Retsuden, but you definitely won't love it. Aside from Piccolo, who you have to love no matter what.